people don't realize that if you have skills and there's people who need your skills, you have the basis of an economy right there. We can actually do these things for each other without using these giant, draining, extractive institutions, which is what corporations really are.
Douglas Rushkoff is media theorist, writer and documentary maker. In the next 15 minutes, he talks about market forces, multinationals and societal alienation. Welcome to Backlight Talks.
What we used to do was we would buy things from people we knew who were skilled. So I want to buy your shoes because you're a good shoemaker and I know you. You want to buy my medications because I mix drugs well and you trust that you want your family to have good medications. So we know each other's face, we have human relationships. When the industrial age came, particularly in America, now you have a company 1,000 miles away that's going to make something that I'm supposed to buy. So I don't know the face of the person making it. There is nobody there. It's just a factory with immigrants or laborers working in there. They don't want me to see that, so what do? They come up with a brand to represent their company. So if they're making oats, they put a Quaker on the box of oats. That's one of our first American brands, and they paint a picture of a nice Quaker. And they do radio and television advertisements so that I have a relationship now. Instead of with a person, I have a relationship with a brand, with a company, with Quaker. And after years and years and decades of me relating to brands, we as people, I as a person, begin to trust brands more than I do other people. Why am I going to buy oats or cookies from some person who's making it in their kitchen? Are they clean? I don't know. It's just some person. When I could be getting cookies from a big, wonderful corporation with these advertisements with elves that bake the cookies in a hollow tree, right? And I believe in that. And so through advertising and mass marketing, we changed the way people relate to things. We no longer want to think of the things in our lives coming from other humans, other people. We want to think of them as coming from big, clean, wonderful factories, along with brands and the responsibility that a factory can give something. I remember a conversation with a pregnant woman in my apartment house who she was looking to hire what's called a lactation consultant. It's a person to teach you how to breastfeed your baby. And I told her, there's the old lady in the building. She's got all these grandchildren. She, taught my wife. She knows how to do this. She's really good at that. And she said, I couldn't do that. Well, why not? Well, I don't really know her that well. And then she's going to want to maybe come over, or be friends with us. The old lady wants to come over and be friends is a good thing, not a bad thing. But now in our society, we look at it as a bad thing to know your neighbors, that now you're going to owe them something, or what if they get sick, and how am I going to get along with them? We don't even want to accept favors from other people because that's going to create community. Community sounds like communism at this point, right? Community, it's all of that. So we want the clean relationships of money. It's like men who'd rather go to a prostitute than deal with a girlfriend because you have to deal with her then. It's like this person, this other person. Right? And the products and things that we buy then reinforce this. Advertising is here to make us believe that human relationships are mediated by corporate products, right? How do you become a cool kid? Not by doing cool things. You become a cool kid by buying this cool piece of clothing. How do you be a cool adult? You're a cool adult because you've got the latest iPhone. When I was a little kid, we lived in a middle-class neighborhood of Queens, New York. It's part of the city, and the houses were very close, attached to each other, and There was one big barbecue at the end of the block, a grill. It's, had cinder blocks or something and a grill across. And every Friday evening, around 5 or 6 o'clock, someone would light it up. And we'd all go down there and bring our hot dogs and hamburgers, whatever, and some adult would grill it, either your parents or someone else's parents. And it was like a weekend-long party. All weekend long, you'd have this community barbecue. You just shared, and everyone trusted each other, whatever. You'd eat his hot dog, he'd eat yours, whatever. We got wealthier then. My father got better jobs, and we moved to a rich suburb of Westchester, New York. And the difference was that instead of having one barbecue pit at the end of the block, everybody had their own barbecue, right? So now, instead of barbecuing with your neighbors, you kind of barbecued against your neighbors. You'd get, porterhouse steak. They'd have sirloin steak. You'd get filet mignon steak. They'd get, something, whatever, Japanese beef or whatever, Kobe or something. It was like, and the barbecue, which had been the way that our whole block got together, was now this isolated thing our little family did by itself, right? And this is because we were better off, right? So because we're better off, we get to be alone barbecuing in our own backyard against our neighbors, rather than having this poor person's experience of just sharing hot dogs. Now this is good for the economy, right? Because now every single family on the block has their own grill, right? But it's bad for the society. It's bad for the culture, bad for the community. We are the products of 200 years of branding and advertising, right? That has been designed over time by the best psychologists and sociologists and anthropologists that money can buy, to believe that sharing things with other people is not a good thing, and that buying stuff from shiny big corporations is the path to happiness. We believe in America that the more distance you have between your house and your neighbor's house, the better off you are, which is another way of saying the more distance there is between you and your fellow man, the happier you're supposed to be. But what really happens is the more distance that there is, the more unhappy you are. And then the more compelled you feel to fill that void with more stuff from corporations. And we don't have to do a tape change, you're just all digital now?
It's very digital. It's very digital. It's 18 minutes.
I found out that central currency was invented in about 1200 AD in Europe. Well, it was brought into Europe as a way of preventing the rise of the merchant middle class in the late Middle Ages. Peasants had developed what we would now call peer-to-peer currencies. They developed currencies based on grain, and they started trading with each other, and they started to get very wealthy. And the kings looked at that and said, this is a problem. These are families, the wealthy, were families that had been wealthy and hadn't worked in centuries. They had never created value. They had never had to compete with anybody. And if the poor classes are getting wealthy, then what's happening to the wealthy classes? They're going down. They're getting poor. So they changed the laws. They said that all of these currencies are illegal, and the only currency you're allowed to use is central currency that you borrow from me at interest. So if you want to trade with him, you have to use money and you have to borrow it from me. So this is a way that I can stay rich by being rich without actually doing anything. And that's really where we've gotten to today. After several centuries of living that way, we no longer see it as the law. We no longer see it as the prescription of a king. We just think that's what it is. You want to make money, you get a job, right? You want to invest your money, you buy stock in a corporation, right? If you want to borrow money, you go to the bank and borrow money. That's the way it's done. The actual movements of money have nothing to do with the buying and selling of goods, and everything to do with the buying and selling of money itself, right? So the investment speculative economy is, at this point, 10 times bigger than the real economy. What we're just seeing now is the derivative economy, which is based on the stock market economy, which is based on the actual economy of goods and services. The derivative economy just bought the stock market, which already bought the regular economy. So now we're twice removed from the real economy of goods and services, which means that all of these other people have to be paid. Right, so that the money that's coming down from on high, the money itself is more expensive than the things we're buying with the money. Now there's all of these other corporations that are making all this money based on the fact that that transaction is happening. Now, where does that money come from? That money doesn't come from the air, right? The money's actually is weight, it's leverage on the original transaction. The reason why things are expensive is because for every dollar you spend on something, 80 cents of it is going to bankers who are doing nothing. Right? You're buying something that's 20 cents, and the person who made it is getting 20 cents. There's this other 80 cents that's not going to anybody, but where do you earn that? Where do you get that? Right? So once people realize, oh my gosh, you mean this money is so expensive, this money itself is debt, that we can have so much more. You can work a day a week and get everything you need through that. There's two ways out. One way out is people start to realize this. It's why I wrote Life Inc. People start to see this and go, oh, there's other ways we can do this. We can start to develop local currencies. We can start to do favors for one another. We could join community-supported agriculture groups where we subscribe for food rather than going to the big agra. We can disempower corporate America, not by fighting against it, but by slowly and surely taking more and more of our activity in our own hands and starting to do things for each other. That's probably not going to happen because people are so hypnotized and they think of that as weak somehow. They think of that as messy or as the thing that poor people would do. The other way it happens is the way it's going to happen in Greece and Spain and Italy after that, which is we can't survive, right? Money's gotten too expensive. We don't have jobs. There's no food. The supermarket's empty because their loans don't work anymore. Our economy has crashed. So when the centralized, giant, top-down corporate economy no longer works and we have to eat, then we develop other things. Real capitalism, the kind that Adam Smith talked about, is a local phenomenon. You can have markets and merchants and trading and economic growth. You just don't want it to be circumscribed by corporate law. And if we don't have to use corporations, big multinational corporations, to orchestrate the transactions that can happen locally between people, but we let them stay alive to do the big ones, right? You're going to buy your iPhone from a corporation, right? That's what they're for. Big things, big giant stuff. But your lettuce, your broccoli, you can get that locally. Money, corporate money, is always going to be their life's blood, right? Humans don't live off that. Humans don't ultimately even live off money. We live off something else, love and food and environment and communities and all these other things. And those can really only be addressed by a public conversation, right? So if we can't, as a society, invest whatever it is that we need to in that conversation, then we really are at the mercy of our corporate inventions. Vipro.